from Joe Aringo, who I like because I can actually pronounce his name. If China were to take military action against Taiwan, how would an amphibious landing by the Chinese onto Taiwan play out?
Well, I'm not going to pretend to be a Chinese general. What I'll say is this: I am somewhat of an expert in amphibious landings. I actually planned a two-division amphibious assault against Iraq in the fall of 1990 on behalf of the Commandant of the Marine Corps, and these are not operations to be undertaken lightly. They're high risk operations, and if they fail, they tend to fail big. Which means I don't believe the Chinese would lead off with a amphibious operation. I think the Chinese would carry out significant preparatory actions, a lot of missiles hitting command and control points, hitting troop concentrations, hitting logistics, and just seeking to degrade the Taiwanese military capability as much as possible, and to demoralize the leadership and the people. And then using air power to prep whatever areas they plan on doing an amphibious assault, and then when the conditions are extremely favorable, to do an amphibious assault, probably in conjunction with an airborne landing, seizure of airfields, seizure of strategic sites, and then to begin the process of pouring Chinese troops, seize a port, have shipping come in, offload more heavy equipment. But this isn't Normandy. There's not a need to get a lot of troops over the beach instantaneously. China's an island, so it's a target just waiting to be exploited by Taiwan's an island. It's a target waiting to be exploited by the Chinese, and I believe that the Chinese will have done their best to actually win the war, so to speak, before they start committing troops on the ground. I don't believe they'd lead with troops. That's just a very risky thing, and the Chinese are risk averse. There's no reason to do that, to put yourself in a position where you could be handed a defeat up front. The best thing to do is to shape the battle so that there's a virtual guarantee of success with your amphibious assault and your airborne assault. So no, I don't think they'd lead with it. But then again, my last name's Ritter, and that doesn't sound like a good Chinese last name. So they might have their military guys out there who are looking at me going, "Nah, you're wrong, dude. We're going to do it the other way." But we'll see.
Right. In a previous episode, we talked about Nancy Pelosi's motives for taking this trip to Taiwan, and it seemed to be about what she perceived as some kind of a domestic political benefit. But I was surprised that, since she did go, that a lot of Republicans were applauding her for it. What do you make of that? And what do you make of, China's response so far? All these, is it just the roar of a lion? Is the lion going to attack or what?
Well, we'll start off with the U.S. Our politicians are all about shaping perception, and they don't want to be perceived as weak or backing down, etc. So by Nancy Pelosi forcing this issue, you have the people in the cheap seats, and let's be honest, any Republican in Congress right now is in the cheap seats. They're not the party in power. Their opinion doesn't count for anything. They're not making decisions. So they get to sit there and say no to things that they want to say no to, and they get to support things they want. And it's all done with a political finger in the air. So the Republicans are getting cheap, political points by jumping on something that is designed to create the perception of American strength. If they had a brain in their skull, they'd realize that actually what Nancy Pelosi did is highlight American weakness. There's nothing strong about Nancy Pelosi flying Taiwan. She's not an aircraft carrier, although we sent 2 aircraft carriers and 2 amphibious landing vessels towards Taiwan to support her. She did something. She set in motion events that she's not in control of. I mean, to be powerful, to be influential, you should be in control of the totality of what you're trying to accomplish. Meaning that if you're going to set in motion something, there should be a plan to follow through. She doesn't have a plan. The United States doesn't have a plan. Right now, we're sitting there on a wing and a prayer, hoping the Chinese aren't serious about invading Taiwan. Are the Chinese serious about this? Look, their constitution is quite clear. They passed an amendment in 2005 that makes it, black letter law that if Taiwan seeks independence or other nations seek to treat Taiwan as they are an independent entity, that, while the Chinese would prefer the peaceful reunification, they will take non-peaceful means. These exercises right now are sending a signal that Taiwan is serious. And one of the reasons why this signal resonates so much is that these aren't, exercises that aren't capable of producing a result. These are exercises that could, with a snap of the finger, become reality, meaning that it doesn't take much to transition from flexing the muscle to actually hitting Taiwan with the old right hook, left hook, and jab, jab, jab. So I think the Chinese are serious. And if the Taiwanese and the United States don't start treating this as serious and start backing down, China's been warning the United States about its irresponsible rhetoric, political rhetoric for many months now. And if the United States continues to treat this as a non-issue, I just believe that China may be compelled to use military force. It's the last thing they want to do. The Chinese all across the board say, we actually lose far more than we gain by using military force. We'll end up destroying the jewel that we want to incorporate into China, destroying Taiwan. But we can't allow Taiwan to go down the path of independence. And the thing about letting Taiwan, giving too much of a leash, is if Taiwan declares independence and then the United States and other nations follow up by recognizing independent Taiwan, now we have a situation where security guarantees can be made that are now binding on an independent nation. Right now, the world views Taiwan as part of China. The one China policy is still, at least in terms of lip service, what everybody recognizes, which means that nobody has a defensive alliance with Taiwan because Taiwan is China. Nobody, is running to defend Taiwan because Taiwan is China. But if Taiwan actually jumps that line and becomes independent, now nations will have relationships with Taiwan, and this creates a situation where China's military response becomes far more complicated. So I don't think the Chinese want to allow this to spin out of control by failing to act tough up front. I think they're acting tough. I think they would prefer that this just be a demonstration and that they can back down. But I also believe that they're fully prepared to do what's necessary to terminate Taiwan's drive towards independence. And it's a drive that was put in motion by Nancy Pelosi.
All right, you're too mellow tonight, Scott. Drink up. We got to get you riled up. I'll pull some trick out of my hat to get you angry if necessary. Sergei Lubomedrov. How would you pronounce that? Lubomedrov. By the way, somebody said that cheers that you said was actually Polish, not Russian. Do you concur with that? Somebody also said, yeah, go ahead. Don't worry.
Said that what?
The when you did the cheers with me over the drinks, that's actually a Polish, not Russian.
Look, I'll defer to the experts. I'm an American.
Somebody else also said that the audio sounds much better, and then the next step they want from you is to turn off your AOL notifications, which I don't hear tonight.
I turned it off. Yeah, I turned it off. So
they may be
I'm a step ahead of them.
All All right. Would you still, Sergey wants to know, or Serge, would you still volunteer to defend Ukraine if you were a Ukrainian citizen, knowing that your country is hijacked by a Nazi clique beholden to a foreign power?
Me personally, yeah. You invade my country, I'll kill you. End of story. I defend my country. I'm just being straight up with you. I do that as an American. I do that, defending your country doesn't buy into the ideology. You're defending your homeland. You're defending your city. You're defending your family. You're defending your friends. There's a difference between defending your country from a foreign incursion and engaging in offensive action, promoting the ideology of your country. Ultimately, it's a tough thing. At some point in time, you'd like to believe that you would stand up to your own government, but you're not going to stand up to your government while your country's being invaded. So if I were a Ukrainian citizen and my city, my hometown was invaded, I'd be on the front line, hooking and jabbing with whoever came across the border. That's just a statement of fact.
You're a Nazi sympathizer. Okay, we made a headline. Steve-O asks, can Scott Ritter, Nazi sympathizer, give some thoughts on the Serbia-Kosovo situation? I can't get him angry, so you're
trying to get me riled up, man. It ain't going to work.
I know. It's too obvious.
The Serbia-Kosovo situation. Look, Kosovo, I think it's widely recognized that the NATO intervention against Kosovo in 1999 was in violation of international law, and that Kosovo's decision to declare independence in 2008, maybe. My brain is a little murky on this one, but don't hold me to it. But I think around 2008 they declared independence. And while a number of nations in Europe recognize them, a number of nations didn't. One of the nations that don't recognize it is Serbia. And so we have a situation now where Serbia does not recognize Kosovo independence. Kosovo is trying to assert its sovereignty by being seen as independent of Serbia. We have a Serbian majority population living in the north of Kosovo who don't recognize the rule of the Kosovar government. They recognize the authorities in Belgrade. And what's going on is what I call the license plate war. It's a lot more serious than it sounds, but one of the ways that this issue of who has sovereign control is being played out is over license plates. If you're a Serb, ethnic Serb living in the north of Kosovo, and you view Belgrade as your authority, your license plate is going to be issued by Belgrade, so it's going to be a Serbian license plate. The Kosovars are saying, no, if you're part of Kosovo, you have to have a Kosovar license plate, so you have to re-register your vehicles with a Kosovar license plate. This is an issue that came up in 2021, and before it could come to a head, the solution that was reached was that they would put stickers over the national emblems on the licenses, so license plates, so that neither side could claim sovereignty. But the Kosovar government at the end of June once again passed these laws about license plates and about, I believe, documents. You need, if you're a Kosovar, you need a permit to go into Serbia and re-enter Kosovo. This led to almost led to a war on August 1st when they tried to implement this. An agreement was reached to delay the implementation of this law until September 1st. That's just kicking the can down the road. The bottom line is Serbia will not recognize and will not allow any procedures to be implemented that give the perception of recognition of Kosovar sovereignty over any part of Kosovo, but especially the northern part where the Serbian population lives. I think come September, we could really be looking at a situation where Serbia and Kosovo begin, combat operations against one another. And NATO, of course, has 3,500 troops in Kosovo as part of the occupation force there. And NATO may find itself embroiled in a new conflict in its backyard at the same time that they're giving away all of their military capability to Ukraine in a losing fight against Russia.
Okay, next question is from Irina. That seems like a very popular Russian name. I see that a lot. I really enjoy traditional American culture, romance of frontier, family values, strength of character, etc. Do you think some version of the good old America will ever come back? That sounds vaguely familiar to a certain president we had in his theme.
Trump.
Yeah, well, Trump is not a frontiersman. Trump is a fat businessman. Ronald Reagan was our frontiersman. And then the sort of a poor replica would be George W. Bush. Sort of a cowboy type character. Look, the bottom line is it's never gone away. I believe I fit that description. I'm somebody who believes in the American, in the frontier spirit, that America should be out seeking to expand the boundaries of the possible. I'm not talking about occupying the world. I'm talking about, we're the nation that went to the moon. We should be the nation that's leading the charge to Mars. We're the nation that should be leading the charge to solve world hunger. This is what America does, and what we're capable of doing. I believe in family values, but this is complicated because we live in a day and age where, family values is taking on a new meaning. And I think, the country is struggling with this. I don't want to get too far down this rabbit hole, but
yeah, I know it's really hard to know what people mean. I mean, I'm making a joke out of it.
Well, I think traditional family values. I think that when you're speaking to Russians, I know exactly what they mean.
Oh, you do?
They mean a man, a woman, traditional family. The Russian nation is not on board with woke culture. They're not on board with recognition of same-sex marriages. They're not on board with transgendered. Politics, transgender rights. Russia does not agree with this at all. And so when somebody with a name like Irina, who I believe would probably be a Russian, is saying this, I can pretty much guarantee that if she's Russian, she's saying traditional family values is a man, a woman, and the traditional nuclear family. And the United States is struggling with this issue right now. We're struggling. That's all I can say, without putting any right or wrong on it.
We still have Leave It to Beaver reruns. Eddie Haskell. My Mrs. Cleaver, you certainly look attractive today. That's traditional American values, right?
Cleaver,
yeah, but
your hair looks nice. Thank you, Eddie. Where are your rubbers?
What? Why would she want Eddie Haskell to bring rubbers?
What she was talking about, 1950s.
You see, even with traditional American values, you never know. You never know. You got to watch out for those traditional types. All right. Let's see. This is Sergey. Now we have a new star in Russia, Yaroslav Dronov, whose stage name is Shaman. Could you ask your daughter to listen to the Russian word for "let's get up" and another video, "I am Russian," and let us know her reaction? I guess people know that one of your daughters is studying Russian. You said that.
Yeah, Patty, Patricia is in Georgetown getting her master's degree in Russian area studies. So I will ask her to listen to that, and next week we will have a response.
All right, I'll give you a few seconds of it now. I can send you the links. This guy's got millions of views in Russia.
No, I'm familiar with this. I've seen this.
You already are? Really?
Oh, yeah. This is Mr. Dreadlocks. Yeah. This is the Russian with the dreadlocks. Yeah.
You are up on everything.
Well, I try.
All right, let's go to the next question then. Daniel Hunig. Is that how to pronounce it? With those 2 dots over the U?
You're doing a better job than I am, so.
All right. It must be the Merlot I'm drinking. The shelling of a detainment center in, you know how to say this? Jelenoka. Yeah. Jelenoka is a new low. What kind of evidence is detectable, and how should a nonpartisan investigation proceed?
Well, look, the Russians know how to, in the Donetsk People's Republic, know how to carry out a proper forensic investigation. And I will assume that this was done, which means, you initiate immediate life-saving measures, but the first responders who are taking these measures are trained in crime scene preservation, so they don't needlessly kick things around. They try and keep things where they were. They put out the fire. They preserve the bodies. Unfortunately, there was a lot of dead people, a lot of burned bodies. It's the same thing we would do if we came to a structure fire. You need to determine. You have to put the fire out. You have to preserve life and property, but then you have to also preserve the scene so that arson investigator can come in and see, what was the cause, how did the fire start, and if people were killed or injured, the cause of death, and determine whether it was an accident or deliberately set. Here, we know that the attack was done by a rocket from a multiple launch rocket system. The question is, was it done by HIMARS, an American system, or was it done by one of the other systems that the Ukrainians have? The Russians have provided fragments that appear to be from the HIMARS system. I would hope that before they presented these fragments to the world, that as they collected them, photographs were taken, videos were taken of the guys collecting it, and then it was bagged properly, and you have this whole chain of custody thing that's preserved, so that people can't accuse you of seeding the site with with fragments that were taken from other locations in an effort to put the blame on the United States. But here's the thing. We're in a war. But the world is witnessing a war where some of the most advanced military capabilities in the history of warfare are at play. And what I mean by that is, whoever fired the HIMARS, I can guarantee, one, that the moment the HIMARS was fired, there were multiple intelligence systems collecting the infrared signature of that launch. And then there were multiple radar systems detecting the flight of the HIMARS, in which you can trace right back to the location where it was launched. And if there was command and control being provided or targeting being provided, that you're either intercepting the communications. Now they'll be encrypted digital communications, but those can be rapidly broken into, and we'll know what they were saying. If they were sent by computer, the cyber people are intercepting that, likewise finding out. And then you see where the weapon hit. There's a photograph of the hole in the roof of this facility. Based upon just a basic cursory look at that, you get a direction of angle of impact. You can do basic reverse plotting of the trajectory, and again, it'll take you back all the data points that these rockets came from Ukraine. All the data points in that way. And then you get the issue of, who benefits from the most. Everybody that was killed in there was affiliated with the Azov regiment or the neo-Nazi elements of the Ukrainian defenders who were defending Mariupol. Many of these people were starting to give testimony. They're all going to trial. And this testimony is damning to Ukraine. It implicates at the highest levels the Ukrainian government's role in ordering the genocide of ethnic Russians, of ordering the rape of women, the murder of children, the torture of men. This is all being documented. And there's nothing worse for the Ukrainian government than to have live witnesses come out and just give this damning testimony, giving dates of the meetings, times, maybe indicating where documents can be found. This is eyewitness firsthand testimony. So, from the Ukrainian perspective, you got to do two things. One, you got to silence it. So you're going to kill the people who are giving testimony. This is old mafia stuff, man. This is straight out of The Godfather. You got to kill the guys getting ready to speak, and then you got to muddy the waters. So by killing them, you now say the Russians did it because the Russians, are the ones that that are murderous thugs, and so they create a muddied water. And it allows nations like the United States to disingenuously say, well, this is a he said, she said thing. We're not weighing in one way or the other. When the reality is, if this was HIMARS, we now know because the deputy head of intelligence for the Ukrainian military in the Kiev district, and why Kiev's important is that's the district where all the intelligence capabilities flood in, said every time the HIMARS is fired, the United States is involved in the targeting, that the United States plays a role in all aspects of HIMARS operations, which means that if HIMARS was used against the prison facility, the Americans involved are war criminals. End of story. No ifs, ands, or buts. You can't target a prison facility. There's no legitimate military reason to do this. If this was done, the deliberate act, it violates the laws of war. The Ukrainians who pulled the trigger must be held accountable, but everybody in the chain of authority, especially the Americans, are now tainted by this action. So I'm hopeful that it wasn't HIMARS, because I'd hate to believe that we have more than a dozen Americans out there who are now de facto war criminals because they are actively involved in the targeting of a site that's prohibited to be attacked under international humanitarian law, under the law of war.
All right. While you're talking about all this serious life and death stuff, people are commenting on YouTube, proudly declaring themselves to be functioning alcoholics, and giving us a toast in various languages, including L'chaim, which I believe is Yiddish. And apparently what you said is both Russian and Polish. It means to your health, more or less.
You said it in Russia many, many times, and the Russians seem to understand what I was saying. But as I said, I'm not a trained linguist, so I'm fully capable of fumbling just about any foreign language.
All right. Well, we've clearly touched a nerve with our beloved audience.
But what I can say is that it is холодное пиво и очень вкусно. It's cold beer and it's very delicious.
All right. And do you have more in the refrigerator? That's a rather large bottle, isn't it? That's not like a 12-ouncer, is it?
Oh, and I don't have more in the refrigerator because, as I told you, I'm getting of the age where one beer will make me happy, two beers will put me to sleep.
Yeah, so. I am too. I get like nasty hangovers if I drink just a little bit more than I should.
Yeah, we don't want to shut this episode down sooner than we need to.
Yeah, right.
And a second beer would be the end of the episode.
All right. We'll be moderate here. Chikoff Alexandra says, what unexpected turn could the war take? What if it were to become unprofitable for Biden or something else?
I assume when he speaks of the war, he's talking about the Russian-Ukraine conflict, not the pending potential China-Taiwan conflict.
Yes, I think so. It's unfortunate that we now have to wonder now that
we have a two-front, the potential for a two-front war, which is never a winning proposition.
Yeah.
But we're being an outside observer, you're a prisoner to data provided by other sources, and primarily when we're talking about the Russian side, it's either Russian government sources or people who are interpreting Russian government sources. I think the common wisdom right now is that Russia has sufficient logistics capability to sustain this conflict for as long as necessary. They're not going to be running out of ammunition. They're not going to be running out of fuel. And they are in so great control of the events on the ground that it's virtually impossible to come up with a scenario where the Ukrainians are able to flip the script and actually seize the initiative and put the Russians on the defense. So the only turn of events I can see is that we've been deceived by the Russian government, that they're actually, there's an ammunition shortage, there's a fuel shortage. They've taken heavier casualties than they've let on, that they lack trained manpower, that their command and control is insufficient. And at some point in time, all of this catches up to the Russians, and the Ukrainians will somehow miraculously launch the counterattack that another miracle on the Vistula. That's when the Polish army was able to turn back the Red Army in 1921 outside of the gates of Warsaw. So, I think there's people who dream about this possibility. I don't believe it's a viable outcome. I believe the Russians are in command of the events on the ground. I think the Russians have more than prepared themselves for all eventualities. They have enough ammunition, they have enough fuel, they have enough men, they have enough tanks, they have enough equipment, and they're just keeping the pressure on the Ukrainians across the front. The Ukrainians are losing everywhere, and they're all, the world that sought to sanction Russia into submission. Russia has seized control of that narrative too. The Russian economy is doing well. Putin just came back from a meeting in Sochi with Turkish President Recep Erdogan, where they're talking about, enhancing Russian-Turkish economic cooperation so that there's $100 billion turnover every year. Russia's expanding its economic interaction with China, with India. This Trans-Eurasian Union is taking off. BRICS is expanding. So economically, Russia's, doing okay, whereas the West is in collapse. There's talk about, the ruin of Europe this winter because there's not going to be enough energy to keep not only the people warm, but to keep industries functioning. Mass unemployment. A lot of Germans are talking about riots in the streets. So they've done that. And then politically, there's not a Western leader right now who's looking good. Any Western leader that jumped on the Joe Biden, we're going to make the ruble rubble bandwagon, is looking pretty bad, and many of them have lost their positions of power. Whereas Vladimir Putin is more popular than ever, and I believe that his popularity is going to continue to rise as Russia prevails. So I don't think there's anything that can flip the script. And when you talk about Biden, and wealth and all these other things, one, Russia doesn't care. Two, all this will do is further the collapse of Ukraine. I think right now Ukraine is waking up to the reality that the West is suddenly cognizant of the corruption that is rampant there, suddenly cognizant of the fact that the Ukrainian military is getting crushed, and cognizant of the fact that not only are we not changing the outcome of the battlefield by providing all these weapons to Ukraine, but we're stripping bare our own armory. If we ever had to fight the Russians, we're giving up the equipment that we need to do this. We're giving up the ammunition that we need. And we, as much as we talk about the great, arsenal of democracy, the fact of the matter is there is no magic switch that we flip and suddenly we can produce everything. That's not how capitalism works. We operate on very thin margins of efficiency, and there would have to be a significant lead-up time for us to, for instance, start producing more ammunition. We're giving away all our ammunition to the Ukrainians. It's getting blown up. It's being used. And right now, the fear is that if we went to war with Russia, we only have 10 to 14 days worth of ammunition, and then it's out. It's done. And, an artillery piece without ammunition, you might as well just call it a coffin, because that's anybody. You're just going to die. You need ammunition. We don't have enough of it. We may not have enough equipment. We're giving it all away to the Ukrainians. And, it's not just that they were giving it away to the Ukrainians. The Russians are destroying it. So, no, I don't think this scenario is going to end it any other way other than a absolute, total, decisive Russian victory.
All right, here we have another question that just came in on YouTube. Steve-O is offering a drinking tip and also a serious question. So this is, to me, is the epitome of Scott Ritter Extra audience participation, the best of both worlds. He advises us to drink pure vodka to avoid hangovers. And maybe that would be Stolichnaya, for example. We'll give that a shot. And here's his question. Russia is now advancing on the outskirts of Donetsk. How will the battle evolve over the next few weeks?
I think what we're seeing right now is, again, a lot of people don't realize that in the Donetsk People's Republic, especially on the opposite side of on the Ukrainian side of the main city of Donetsk, the Ukrainian military had dug in and fortified villages, strips of forest land with bunkers, trenches, in depth, with supporting fires and all this. One of the most dense and sophisticated defensive lines in modern history, and the Russians have just been like a criminal picking the lock, and they got all the tumblers in the right position. The lock sprung open. They're in the process of removing the lock from the door, and then they're going to kick the door open and off to the races. The Ukrainian lines have been breached. These defensive lines have been breached, and the Ukrainians had their best troops defending these lines, and these guys are just getting trashed, ground up, slaughtered, annihilated. I think we're going to see an acceleration in the pace of advance once the Russians break free of these defensive lines. I think you're going to see, the Russians, moving forward more rapidly, and then any effort by Ukraine to stop them will be in the open, as opposed, they won't be protected by trenches, they won't be protected by villages, they'll be in the open, which makes them more susceptible to being located and destroyed by Russian air power, by Russian artillery, and by Russian maneuver forces on the ground. I think we're seeing, the culminating moment of this conflict where, things are just going to rapidly deteriorate for the Ukrainians. It doesn't mean that the war is going to be over instantaneously. Remember, we're dealing with a Ukrainian military that was the second largest in Europe, with the potential of mobilizing hundreds of thousands of reservists who can be thrown into the fighting. So there's a lot of fighting left, but I think we're going to see that the nature of the war is going to change from this grinding operation in an effort to destroy Ukrainian defensive positions into a more free-flowing exercise where Russia will likewise hold all the advantages.
All right, Marina is going to love this episode, Scott. This is the mellow, very polite, civil Scott. She's going to love it. No, look at this name. Oh, my God. How would you pronounce that first name? I'll take the last name. You take the first name.
Mr.
It could be Ms., though, right?
It could be.
Yeah. Yes, Ash. Greetings from the Ukrainian city of Kharkiv. When do you think the conflict in Ukraine will end? Also, will there be a military operation in Taiwan? You kind of talked about that already, but is there anything more you want to say about that one before we move on to the next question?
Well, I think if you live in the Ukrainian city of Kharkiv, I think you're going to find that the Russians have put their sights on that city, and that unfortunately there's going to be a battle for the city. I don't think this special military operation ends with Kharkov, if you're Russian, still under Ukrainian control. It's going to be a Russian city. So is Odessa. So is Dnipropetrovsk. So are other, villages, cities, towns that are currently under Ukrainian government control. One of the downsides of accepting NATO military weaponry is that the Ukrainian government, changed the. It was a game-changing moment. We've already had this discussion, and the game changed. And Russia has made it clear now that, given what Ukraine has done, Russia will no longer be satisfied with simply securing the Donbass and guaranteeing the continued Russian sovereignty over Crimea. That this is going to be about securing the Russian people.
Game
that is,
changes to the game such that the game can never be played the same way again.
Sorry, a little off on the timing there. I apologize.
no
Go
problem. No, I just think that this war is going to cost Ukraine potentially a third of its land. Ukraine will never look the same, and there's a possibility if NATO continues and the United States continues to pour resources in, that this will cost Ukraine everything. That there won't be a Ukraine when this war is over. And there's been several high-profile Russian and Russian leaning politicians and leaders who have said just that. So, yeah.
Okay, didn't get an answer yet to my question, so I want to put it out there again to our friends in Russia. We want to see whether or not you can access this website, scottritterextra.com. And if so, we will continue to recreate the Scott Ritter Extra page there. So if you could let me know in the comments or send an email right there to askScott@ustourofduty.org, I would be grateful, and you in Russia will be happy if it works anyway. All right. Next question comes from Aldis Baltutis. My old friend Aldis. Is it really that hard to destroy the bridges with high-precision rocketry? Why don't Russians cut the supply lines from the west for the Ukrainian army? Seems like they have enough artillery.
This is a question that analysts have been raising from the very start of this. That why did Russia allow the train lines to continue to operate? Why does Russia allow electricity to exist in Ukraine? Why does Russia allow the internet to function? Why does Russia allow the Ukrainian government to communicate? It's a special military operation. It's not war. And so Russia has taken a very measured approach. Only Russia can answer these questions. I believe that from an outsider's perspective, that Russia has sought to retain as much civilian infrastructure as possible so that Ukraine could recover from the consequences of this conflict in a more easy manner. The longer this fight goes on, though, and the more casualties Russia takes, I think you're seeing the gloves come off, and that Russia has been interdicting rail lines, has been blowing up some bridges, not all. But the Russians are, the one thing we can say is that the Russians have stayed on their script. They haven't been jumping all over the map. They're very consistent. And they've said straight up that, we're not in this business to punish the Ukrainian people. We're in this business to destroy the Nazis and to demilitarize and to ensure that Ukraine will never again, A, threaten ethnic Russians, and B, threaten to become a member of NATO. So these are political objectives that are being carried out through military means. But this isn't total war. Russia hasn't declared war against the Ukrainian people, against Ukraine. And so I think that has an impact on the target. And it's frustrating, I know, for people who, from a pure, military logical standpoint, say, man, if they're bringing stuff in from Ukraine or from Poland and from Romania and it's crossing this bridge, why don't you take out the bridge? If they're landing at this airfield, why don't you take out that airfield? If they're using this rail line, why don't you take out that rail line? And from a purely military standpoint, fair questions. But I think we need to recognize that this is a special military operation, which means that there are significant political constraints, and that the Russian military leadership is, following the guidance that's been given by its political leaders. From Putin.
All right, good answer. I'll drink to that. In honor of our former President Obama.
I drank beer heavily and tried drugs enthusiastically.
Okay. Ken Maruska says, I don't intend to be contentious. Uh-oh, that's trouble already. That's like when somebody prefaces what they're going to say is, with all due respect, and then what follows, of course, is extremely disrespectful. All right, but let's go on. I don't intend to be contentious, but you're an asshole. No. But do you have any evidence to support your position on the Bucha killings? It's hard to swallow that it's just a propaganda tool for those in power.
Well, no, I respect the question. Look, I've written about this extensively, so I don't want to replay it. But out of respect for the question, I'll say the following: the victims were wearing white armbands, which indicated that they were declaring either their neutrality or Russian sympathies. Many of the victims were in possession of Russian ration packs, which indicated that they had received humanitarian assistance from the Russians. Why is this important? Because we know that we hear this from a female lawmaker who made a video. We hear this from the Ukrainian security services who published it on their website. They undertook a special operation against Russian collaborators and traitors. And the definition of a collaborator and traitor is anybody who received humanitarian aid from the Russians, anybody who exhibited any pro-Russian sympathies, like wearing a white armband. We know that we had a Ukrainian politician saying, "Stay in your homes. A special operation is being carried out against the traitors and collaborators." What does that mean when a special operation is being carried out against traitors and collaborators? It means that the Ukrainian security services are going in and killing anybody who had shown pro-Russian proclivities. I'm not making this stuff up. It's there. It's in black and white. We have videotapes of the Safari Special Unit bragging about shooting people who didn't have the appropriate color, blue, yellow, or green armband. They had white armbands. They said, "Kill them, kill them, kill them." All right. So I'm not making this shit up. It's real. It's there. And now, we have the evidence coming out of these prisoners that have been caught. Some of them are knowledgeable of this, who are admitting straight up that this is what happened. So we have a huge body of data that sustains a fact-based conclusion that the Ukrainian government, Ukrainian security services were responsible for the deaths that the media says were done by Russian troops. These people were killed in Bucha after the Russians left. Okay? Now, what do we have to contradict this? Nothing. Nothing. What, you got New York Times photos from a U.S. government-controlled satellite organization showing bodies on the ground sometime around, I think, March 8th, 9th. I've pulled up the meteorological data. These bodies would have rotted by the time they were observed by the media on April 2nd, April 3rd. Bodies just don't sit there in 60-degree weather under damp conditions and not blow up and have putrid guts pouring out. Okay, you want to get gross? That's gross. That's called reality. No, there's no evidence to say, I loved it when the Ukrainians came out and showed the flechettes. These flechette rounds were found in the bodies, and it's proof that the Russians do the research, guys. The flechette rounds belong to the Ukrainian government, and they're used by the D-20 artillery piece that only the Ukrainians were using in this battle. So everything points to the Ukrainians doing this. Everything points. And you know what? When it's all said and done, everybody knows this. Everybody knows this. There's been no evidence put out there whatsoever. If we took this to court right now, I guarantee you I'd win. I guarantee you I could prosecute this case. I can guarantee you anybody who says it's the Russians, that case would fall apart in an instant. I'd rip it apart as a Russian defense lawyer, because all you have to do is ask basic questions about the forensics. First of all, half the data being used to go against the Russians would be tossed out of court. They dug up bodies from a mass grave. Okay, did you process the bodies? Were autopsies done on the bodies? The bodies that were there, did a crime scene team come in, and as the body was laying there, examine the wounds and determine which direction the shrapnel came from? Did they align it with a hole in the ground from an artillery shell? I mean, this is all the stuff that should happen. Or did the Ukrainians come in and just pull the bodies away and bury them, hide the evidence? So no, I think I don't make shit up. Sorry, I don't mean to be blunt, but you're not going to succeed in getting me riled up. But when I say something,
you know what would get you riled up? There's a debate raging on YouTube right now. I don't know how it started, but I'm watching the comments. There's a debate raging about whether or not Gonzo Lira is ridiculous or legitimate, essentially.
Gonzo Lira is controlled by the Ukrainian special services. You don't sit there and become an internet opposition figure in Kharkiv, claiming that the Ukrainian government doesn't want you to broadcast and suddenly disappear for a week where you've been detained by the Ukrainian security services, who are known to torture, rape, murder, slaughter, slit throats, gut you, whatever they want to do. And suddenly you're back and given access to the internet. Hey, Gonzo, how'd that work out, buddy? How did you get access to the frickin' internet when you were captured by the SBU? What story did you tell? Or were you an SBU agent all along? Was this some sort of game being played? But I can guarantee you that no security service in the world would allow somebody they accused of being an online provocateur and detained for 5 days and then release them and give him access to computers. They took my computers. But you're broadcasting from somewhere, Gonzo. So no, I think people need to understand that he is literally a Ukrainian government agent. End of story.
All right. Well, let's see what the ridiculous meter has to say about him. I had it calibrated this morning, so we're going to get a very accurate reading. Gonzo Lira, ridiculous or legit? There it is. And ridiculous. Okay, you can't argue with the meter. Calibrated this morning.
Calibrated, okay.
Yeah. If you don't calibrate it, you can't be sure it's accurate. Come on, you know that, Scott. Alex, just simply Alex. Finnish news reports that the possibility of sending Ukraine F-16, F-17, F-18, and A-10 planes. I think I might have left some words out there. Is this sending to Ukraine, I guess. That's what I left out. Is this smart, and is the operational space in Ukraine conducive to use of these planes?
Well, first of all, let's just deal with that.
Technical. The average person, I don't think, knows what those particular
the
planes
F-17. There was a fly-off back in the day, and the F-17 was an experimental plane that I think flew off against the F-16, and the F-16 won the fly-off. So the F-17 was never made part of the American arsenal. So I'm curious about where we'd get F-17s to give to Ukraine to begin with. So let's remove the F-17, unless they mean the F-117, which is the old stealth fighter, which they would only reinforce the point I'm getting ready to make. The United States right now, the reason why we're seeking to build F-22s and F-35s is that our existing, the workhorses of our Air Force, the F-16, the F-15, and maybe the F-17, they meant to be F-15, I don't know. The F-18s, the A-10s, we're literally flying the wings off these aircraft. We're talking about airframes that were manufactured in the 1970s. So we're coming up on 50 years on some of these airplanes. And to give you an example, the A-10 right now, literally the wings are falling off these airplanes. We have to remanufacture these just so that they can stay in service with the United States Air Force. If we gave away A-10s to Ukraine, as some people have discussed, we wouldn't be giving away the remanufactured ones, which we need for the U.S. Air Force. We'd be giving the Ukrainians the old ones, which are already breaking down. Now, anybody who's been involved in military aviation knows that, there's a plane just doesn't take off, fly, land, and repeat as necessary. There's this whole logistics effort and maintenance effort. Modern military aircraft require extensive maintenance with specially trained personnel. If you give the Ukrainians any one of these aircraft, they don't have the logistics or the maintenance capability to sustain this. So, the plane would take off. The airframe would get stressed. Some fuse would blow. Some cable would snap, and the plane would land and would be grounded. That's it. So no, giving the Ukrainians old American military equipment is just a recipe for disaster. The Russians have a solution to any one of these aircraft. The United States, I'm just going to respond to Irish anger. To be fair, Scott did indicate he was dead. He indicated he was dead, you idiot. Okay? Jesus Christ, he said, if I'm offline for 12 hours, assume the fucking worst. All right? So I respected what he said. He disappeared for 12 hours, and I didn't say he was dead. I said Gonzo Lira said that if he was offline for 12 hours, that we have to assume that something bad could have happened to him, and he could be dead. So that's not cool. Stick it in your ear. Anyways, back to the aircraft.
Okay.
Don't put those up there. That's just going to piss me off.
I didn't know. It was
People are so stupid. If you're going to accuse me of something, do your goddamn homework first, okay? Literally do your homework. Don't waste my time. Don't waste your time. Don't waste other people's time. Be smarter than that. Be better than that. But no, they're not going to provide the Ukrainians with these aircraft. When the United States goes to war, it's not just an F-16 fighter, but there's AWACS behind there. There's satellites up there. There's a whole infrastructure of battlefield intelligence that empowers the F-16 to do what it's doing. The Ukrainians don't have any of that. So an F-16 that goes into that battle space will just get shot down. That's it. That's bottom line. And remember, we're not dealing, I don't care how good the Ukrainian pilot is. You don't take a MiG-29 pilot who might be very proficient in the MiG-29 and then immediately transition him into the F-16 and expect the same level of performance. So it's pure stupidity. And I actually don't believe that this is going to happen because I think I don't think there's anybody in the Pentagon stupid enough to do this. This is purely political. This is all politics. This is about American politicians wanting to be seen as doing something. So anybody, I'll leave you with this. Anybody who says we should give the Ukrainians American aircraft doesn't know what they're talking about, and they should be immediately dismissed.
Jack, simply Jack, says it would be interesting if you guys did a quick segment in each show estimating the military math for the week. Just a suggestion. It's an objective way of measuring developments. What's
military math for the week? Well, military math for the week. What I would say is that.
Well, I'm sorry. Before you say what it is for the week, can you just explain what the term military math means?
Well, military math is. I mean, it means another thing. But the way I've been using, I'm assuming that because he's using that term, he's reflecting on what I've said previously. I've talked about basic military math. We start off with basics. When you want to go on the offensive, you want a 3-to-1 advantage. So you want 3 of your guys for every one of them. That's just basic military math. That if you're attacking from a 1-to-3 disadvantage, which the Russians are doing, you're going counter to what is normally expected. Other military math is if you have a tenfold supremacy in artillery, in the number of tubes and the amount of ammunition you're firing, there's every reason to believe that you're going to win the artillery duel. So if the Russians have 4,000, let's just say 2,000 artillery tubes, and the Ukrainians have 200, and the Russians are firing 60,000 rounds, and the Ukrainians are firing 6,000 rounds, that just basic military math is that every time the Russians fire their 60,000 rounds, they're going to destroy a number of those 200 artillery tubes. They're going to be removed from the equation, which limits their ability to counter back. So even if the 200 tubes are 100% accurate every time, and the Russians are only 50% accurate every time, military math is the Russians are going to finish the day with far more artillery pieces. The Ukrainians are going to have nothing. And this is what's happening on the battlefield right now. The Ukrainians are they're being ground down. First of all, the Russian artillery is extraordinarily accurate. So they're not only winning the volume, they're winning the accuracy aspect of it too. I mean, some exceptions are HIMARS, but there's only 8 HIMARS. So probably over drinking. Let's give him a break. Okay, I give him a break. I give anybody a break. Look, it's not easy to be captured by a security service as brutal as the Ukrainians and convince them that you should be allowed to be released without any evidence of torture and being given back your internet connectivity and your computers. So I'm giving them a break. I don't want bad things to happen to Gonzo Lira, but we just have to be. You say he's stressed. He's not stressed. If he was stressed, he'd be. Let's just forget about there. There we go. We'll follow Eric's advice. We'll just forget about it.
I think it's funny which comments you notice. I mean, it looks like most of the time you're not even paying attention to them.
I'm trying to maintain eye contact with you, but then I see that down there, and I just saw Gonzo Lira's name, and I went, oh. But it's like waving a red flag in front of a bull. But the military math. Let's put it this way: the Russians are in the business right now of building battalion-sized combat groups. The Ukrainians are in the business of having their brigades destroyed, so they're losing that military math. There's no aspect of this conflict where Ukraine is gaining an advantage, either in terms of numerical advantage, meaning that they're turning the tide against the Russians, killing more Russians than Ukrainians, or a qualitative advantage, meaning that that they're getting superiority in certain levels of the electronic warfare, intelligence, targeting, and that they're, from a qualitative standpoint, they're able to overcome the quantitative disadvantages they have. So,
what does that mean? I'm sorry, am I distracting you too much with these comments? I'm really into the comments tonight. The most done, is that some kind of a?
I hope that's a compliment. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or dumb? I don't know. Anyways, we'll move on.
Oh, here it is. You explain that. Fun.
Oh, fun. Well, that's because we've introduced a new element.
Yeah, I think Steve-O may be participating too. That's hence the typo, perhaps. Yeah, I think it's fun too.
Baltica number 7 premium. A very good beer. I would recommend it to anybody who's a fan of lager. They don't call it the peanut gallery for me. All right. Come on, Jeff. Give me another question. I think I answered the question. I didn't avoid that question, did I? I answered.
No. You never evade anything. S. Anderson, one of my favorite initials, S.
Scott, yeah.
Do you know if the forces that wanted to oust Yanukovych in 2014 had any intel that he would survive a vote of no confidence, or was his ouster not occurring fast enough?
That is a very good question.
Isn't it? Very sort of esoteric in a way, if that makes sense.
But what I would say to this is that we have evidence in the form of the intercepted phone call of Victoria Nuland and the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, where when you listen to that entire conversation, a couple things emerge. One, the United States was heavily involved with specific elements of the Ukrainian parliament, that we owned a number of these politicians. I mean, when Nuland says Yats is our boy, Yats, of course, being the man that went on to become the prime minister of Ukraine in a post-Maidan political environment. So we had bought and paid for Ukrainian politicians who had received special. I've got the Russian Imperial Stout, so I had a choice of three Balticas. So I have that one. Then I have the special lager as well. So we'll see what happens next week. We'll see if Marina pulls the plug on me drinking beer on live on the internet. So, but
no, you were very civil tonight. I think when she weighs everything, she'll like this version.
Well, and she knows. Anyways, she would say I should never let Gonzo Lira get under my skin because he's nobody. But
it's always
anyway.
something. It's always something.
The thing about I'll just be upfront. The reason why I take the thing is, I actually was concerned. I literally was very concerned that this guy had been kidnapped and he was being tortured, and I was outraged that there was no that nobody was speaking up. That this man is he sold himself as a journalist. That he was he had an audience. He was having an impact. People were listening to him, and he had warned us that if I disappear for 12 hours or more, assume that I've been taken and that they're going to kill me. And he specifically said, they're killing people. Assume they're going to kill me. So the man had disappeared for a couple of days, and I'm like, where's the outrage? Where's the media speaking out? So I made a decision to use whatever platform I have to try and bring attention to this, and I did. I did it with the best of intentions, and we're not allowed to say gay wine. So,
I didn't even catch that. I just you're paying more attention.
You get me in trouble, man. But
my point is that's why
it resonates, because it wasn't an action that I took half-heartedly. I was trying to get attention brought to his disappearance, and then to throw his family. And you know what? His family was fully fucking aware of everything the man had said. I'm not the one that invented, if I'm gone for 12 hours, assume that I'm dead. I don't know what that was, but
no, I was showing why my hand was going up and down. It's one of these things that I don't know what it's called. It's a pump to keep the air in so it lasts longer.
Okay.
As I was doing it, I realized it might look like a
Austin
Jeffrey
Power-ish. It was like a prop from Austin Power. Yes.
Or Jeffrey Toobin is who I was thinking of.
Oh no, don't bring him up. But the point is that's why it gets under my skin, because I was trying to do.
I didn't think other people could see me.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a professional show.
Isn't that good? I had that ready.
Well, that means that you pre-planned that whole thing.
No, I didn't.
So much for spontaneity. Anyways,
no, it wasn't planned. I just thought that would be something that could be used sometime. Go ahead.
So where were we before I got sidetracked on Gonzo? What was the question again about? Yanukovych. Look, the United States. If you don't recognize that, two things: the initial Maidan demonstrations that began, I believe, in 2013, December 2013, when Yanukovych, the president of Ukraine, made a decision that he wasn't going to be moving down the path towards aligning Ukraine with the European Union, but rather he was going to stick with Moscow. And there were a lot of people that basically were unhappy with that. So they exercised their rights to protest, and they did this peacefully. It was a peaceful protest. This was not happy for the United States, and I do believe that the guy is hitting on something. Look, when you ask a question like that, it's coming from a guy who knows what he's talking about, so he knows the answer. He knows that Yanukovych would have survived a vote of no confidence, that there was no hope with a peaceful demonstration to remove him or have, first of all, he's the president, but to collapse the Ukrainian government, things of that nature. And the United States knew this as well, which is why we then turned to our old friends, the Banderists, the people that the CIA had funded actively from 1945 to 1990. And then maintained continuous contacts from 1990 up until 2014 through various Ukrainian immigrant organizations, who produce people like, oh my goodness, Victoria Nuland. I don't know if people realize that Victoria Nuland, when she was a teenager, she attended the Bandera camps. She went out there and she got indoctrinated. She's a good Banderist. So are other people. I don't know who's that guy. Vindman, Alexander Vindman. He's a Banderist. We can just go on and on and on.
Oh, that guy is
of all the the point is, we pretend that we didn't know. No, we built them. We paid for them. We helped them murder. We underwrote with our money and our training, the Banderist movement that was still being controlled by the Gehlen organization, which was a German intelligence organization that operated on the East Front during World War II, Nazis. The CIA took them over, the OSS, and then the CIA took them over after World War II and continued to use the Gehlen organization to control these Ukrainian Nazis to murder 120,000 Polish civilians, to murder 220,000 Russian civilians. Yeah, and we're not talking, this isn't about, one guy going in and slitting the throat here, slitting the throat there. We're talking about bands of armed terrorists surrounding a village and killing every man, woman, and child. There's a photograph. The Poles turned it into a statue. I wish the West would pay attention to it. It's of children who have been tied to a pole with barbed wire. They're dead. The Banderas did that, okay? And they're the ones that we, the United States, empowered. We rose them up in Lvov. We got them to, the CIA worked with them to get the guns out of the police barracks. They came down to Maidan. We directed their activities. They murdered people. They took control. They turned into a violent insurrection. I mean, January 6th, we keep using that term insurrection. Go look at Maidan in February. That's what a frickin' insurrection looked like. Okay, that's CIA-backed insurrection. They rose up, and they're the ones that have transformed, and they created the situation that has ultimately manifested itself in the Russian special military.
Look at this. Somebody's trying to bribe us with a $5 offer to.
We'll take it.
I didn't. All right, we'll take it. But what's the question? Ask the question again. But in general, it's not about money. It's about just getting the questions in time and being interested. I'm talking to them, not you.
But you made me drink a beer, so
So ask the question again, and you'll get your $5 worth. Okay, next question. Igor, what do you know about the U.S. military using PSI weapons? Is it true you can influence a person at a distance without him realizing it and influence entire countries? That's another interesting question. I don't know anything about that, but I did look it up when I saw the question. Do you know much about that, Scott?
Well, are you talking about psychological? What you said you looked it up, so tell me what PSI is.
Oh, I didn't look. I didn't read it that carefully, but I don't know. It's some kind of mind control thing, I guess. So you're not familiar with it?
Look, before I head off on some sort of tangent, I will Google PSI and make sure that.
All right, and while you're doing that, the guy who's trying to bribe us with $5, why don't you ask the question again, or the woman? I shouldn't say guy when all I see is T space OG. Is that a female or male or a they? What is your pronoun? We got to get more politically correct. Steve-O already accused me of drinking gay wine. We're going to get in trouble with somebody. Not me, though. I didn't say it.
Anyway, I think what they're talking about is things that there was a movie made about this, about the man who talked to goats or something like that. George Clooney was in it. But basically, it's weapons that we use for mind control. That you can suggest things through the power of the brain. You can suggest different. I'm not a big believer in it. I'm not going to claim that I know everything about it. I was never directly involved in any of this that I know of. I mean, maybe the Pentagon had their top secret people secretly trying to tell me how to do things, but I don't. I think the best way to control somebody is to threaten to put a bayonet through his lung, and they'll either surrender or they'll fight, and then you kill them, or the control of nations to defeat their army. I think any effort spent on trying to bend spoons and do mind control is wasted effort. War is a very simple, dirty business, and it's best done when you've perfected the art of killing, and the people know that you've perfected that art. So when are the Germans going to forgive the Jews for forgiving Nazis? Hopefully never. Nazis can never be forgiven. They can only be killed.
The questions are getting more. The questions are getting more bizarre. I think people are drinking along with us.
Well, you encourage this.
It's all right. It's all right. It's all good. That's the one thing we need that's lacking in the world today is Jews just aren't forgiving enough of the Nazis. If
Jeff,
only
look, just because we're drinking alcohol doesn't mean that we can suddenly break every barrier in terms of
right.
Political correctness and all this.
Those damn Jews holding grudges.
Oh, don't do this, man.
No, I know.
The Anti-Defamation League is going to come after. Okay, how does the U.S. military deal with?
I think they get that it was sarcasm. Klaus Milbitz. How would the U.S. military deal with the situation of numerous countries overtly supplying weapons to its enemy in active combat, like the situation Russia is dealing with?
Well, we know that. To give you an example, we know that Iran, was providing the Shia militants in Iraq with weapons, training, etc. And we know how we responded. We went to war against Iran. We don't admit it, but we turned the Joint Special Operations Command onto the Iranians, and we carried out covert operations that were designed to kill Iranians, interdict this capability. And the ultimate manifestation of this was the assassination of Qasem Soleimani in the Baghdad International Airport. He was, of course, the commander of the Quds Force, which is the Iranian paramilitary unit that was involved in waging this effort against the United States during its occupation of Iraq. So it's not theoretical. We don't. It's not an academic answer. Well, the U.S. could have done X, Y, and Z. We know exactly what the U.S. did, so if the United States was in Russia's position, we'd be seeing warehouses blown up and blowing up, exploding in Germany, in the United States, in France. Just mysteriously, we'd see various administrators dying in car accidents or being falling from buildings. We'd see money disappearing from bank accounts. We'd see cyber action shutting down computer networks, because that's what we did to the Iranians. So that's what the Russians should be doing to anybody who threatens their troops, but they're not, because the Russians are far more mature. Look, they're winning the war. I think that's what people need to understand. They keep saying, why isn't Russia doing X, Y, and Z? Because they're winning. They're winning. They have a winning formula. It's got the virtual guarantee of success. So why screw it up? If you carry out these kind of operations, like, targeting, the Germans, targeting the French, targeting the Americans in a revenge motive, all you do is create the potential to expand the scope and scale of the conflict, change the algorithm, and it may become an algorithm that no longer, when you compute it, says Russia wins every time. Now, when you compute it, says Russia has just screwed up and maybe gave the United States an opportunity to change the nature of the conflict, and now Russia loses. So, the Russians, I believe, are being very smart, very mature, and they're not taking the bait. Now, it's frustrating. The level of maturity required on this is immense, because Russian soldiers are dying. They're killing Russian soldiers. And yet the Russians are saying, we understand that, we know what's going on, but we're winning this conflict, and we're going to win this conflict, so we're not going to deviate from the plan.
Okay, sorry. It's just reading. This guy Steve-O is on fire tonight. Look at this one.
Al Bundy. Well, there you go.
Vaguely. Have you ever heard anybody say that you look like him? I don't. I think it's vague.
Look, I'll take the compliment. I like Ed O'Neill. I wish I had his sense of humor. He's a good guy. This
guy or gal didn't even restate the question after complaining we didn't answer it. I don't know. Some people just want to complain, I guess. All right, so those are all the questions we have tonight. We got to a lot on YouTube, and maybe we should, in general, do that more. But I want folks to know that they can ask their questions in advance at Ask Scott at US Tour of Duty. There's the email address right there. And also, I think in Russia, I guess it's 3 a.m. or something like that now. So we have a huge Russian audience, but I think they tend to watch the recordings of this since we stream live so late. But I want the folks in Russia to do me a favor and go to scottritterextra.com and let me know in the comments or in an email whether or not you can access the site there, because I know you can't access the U.S. Tour of Duty site. All right, Scott, it was fun. I think we may need to digest this a little bit to evaluate it, but I already think that it's a good format. It's fun. It's a good combination of serious and fun. What do you think?
Well, I enjoy it. I mean, I know I'm going to get in trouble. My wife's not going to be happy about my explosion about Gonzo Lira, so I apologize to anybody I might have offended. Except Gonzo.
That's a different issue than this particular format. You know, I mean.
No, I think. Look, I think we answered a lot of questions. I think we treated the questions seriously and we gave them serious answers. And I actually, and now I'm going to get a little serious here, but we live in difficult times. These aren't light issues. These are serious. This is life and death stuff. And Russian soldiers are dying, Ukrainian soldiers are dying, Ukrainian civilians are dying, European civilians, good people are paying a heavy price for the bad political decisions. The American people have some economic difficulties. And if you reflected on all of these issues with the seriousness that they all deserve, you'd be suicidal. I mean, you literally would be, especially if you're a human being who cares about people. And I know you do, and I know I do. So to anybody who says, that maybe we've lightened it up too much. No, I think that this is, look, I was a firefighter for a number of years, and I have to tell you that the sense of humor that has to exist in that culture to prevent people from going into deep depression is real. The same thing in the military. You go through a tough situation, and you're gonna hear some pretty sick jokes. I don't think you and I have gone down the sick joke rabbit hole, but I think it's good that we brought some levity into this because I don't think anybody can accuse us of not treating the subject seriously. But on the other hand, I don't want people tuning in and leaving depressed. I want people. When we say to be entertained, that our purpose is to inform, but I want people to feel good about the experience. And so hopefully you and I are working to find the right balance. And I think,
I completely agree. I mean, it's like hanging out with your friends in a bar or in a coffee shop or in somebody's home. You have serious discussions, but there are moments when people crack jokes. So, it's fine that you just explained it, but I don't even think we should be all that defensive about it, because I think it's apparent that there's an underlying seriousness. So anyway, I'm now going to cry. No, just kidding.
Do you have a button for that?
No, but let's just check one more time with June Cleaver and see what she has to say.
Where are your rubbers?
Okay.
Don't do that.
All right. So that's it for this week. So ask Scott Ritter at US Tour of Duty. Send us your questions by email. And I guess we'll go back to the regular Thursday night thing. But we can constantly reevaluate as we go on.
We can reevaluate. Thursday's a good day for me. It wasn't good when we had the. You could check the internet, Jeff. It was a major storm, huge lightning.
Thursdays are good when there's electricity in your house, but they aren't good when there's no electricity. Okay.
There was no electricity.
I believe you. All right. See you all next week. Thanks to everybody. We enjoyed the audience participation. In particular, thank you, Steve-O, for all your contributions, all of them.